Okay, the microphone is all set up, everything is working, so let's get this show on the road. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Okay, this is the Midnight Skeptic, and I'm recording this on the second day of the new year. The new year being 2021. Thank God 2020 is over. I won't consider 2020 to be completely over until after January 20th. Till we officially have a new, kinder, more competent executive in our White House. And for all of my thousands of listeners and viewers in Georgia, please elect Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff to be your two senators. Yeah, it's very important. Very, very important. Okay, that was the intro music. This show, after all the shout-outs and all of that kind of stuff, is going to be a two-parter. On October 20th of last year, a couple of months ago, there was a passing that I want to dedicate at least part of this show to honoring, and that was James Randi, R-A-N-D-I. His stage name was the Amazing Randi, and he was a magician and escape artist and all of the things go with it. But the last half of his life was dedicated to exposing frauds, faith healers, spoon benders, hello Uri Geller, and other frauds. And he did a good job of it, and he continued on the job that Harry Houdini started back in the 20s. Houdini exposed psychics and seance leaders who purported to communicate with the dead, and that's what he did. And the Amazing Randi continued in that tradition, and to a certain extent nowadays Penn and Teller are continuing in that vein. In fact, there's a tribute to Randi in this latest issue of the Skeptical Inquirer that I want to read a little bit out of. And then the second part of the show will be feminism in all its waves. Okay, I consider myself to be a feminist. I'm not sure whether hardcore feminists would agree with that, but I agree with it, and it's my show. Okay, so shout outs. All right, Stanley Gustafson down in Pacifica. It was quite a coincidence that as I was setting all this stuff up, my sound effects box that my sound engineer Dennis set up for me, and he, sent me to school, his sound engineering school, about how to set all this stuff up. I am so low tech or no tech that I need this, and these are his notes that he gave me on how to do this, how to make his old man semi-tech literate. Okay, all right, shout outs. That's Stanley. Anyway, he sent me an email as I was looking at my computer screen, talking about, was I going to do a Midnight Skeptic show. And I know that I usually record these things on either Thursday or Friday before the Sunday that it goes out. The YouTube portion of this goes out almost as soon as I do it and download it onto YouTube. The radio part of it, locally, KPCA LP 103.3 FM in Petaluma, California, and then on the World Wide Web, www.kpca.fm. Okay, those all go out Sunday night. And tomorrow, well, it'll be the 3rd, Sunday night at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. For Herr Doctor and Nelson and Geraldine Goldfinger, it's going to be midnight their time. So, okay, shout outs. Okay, Stanley, Mickey Huff, the godfather of Project Censored, who is a history professor over at Diablo Valley College. Again, I don't think he goes in there personally to conduct the classes. Nobody's in live classes around here. But anyway, he is the guiding light behind Project Censored. They come up with a book once a year called, surprise, Project Censored. And they compile all the news stories from around the world that they think was not given adequate coverage, or in a number of cases, wrong coverage. Anyway, check it out. Okay. And he himself has a radio show here on KPCA LP 103.3 FM on Wednesday afternoon. I believe it's 3 o'clock. And then that show is rebroadcast on Berkeley's FM station, KPFA. And I think it's 1 o'clock on Friday, I believe. Anyway, Kathy and Rich Berger over in Sebastopol. Kathy liked my posting of this. I think it was about 4 weeks ago. Anyway, I had no idea that she was even listening to this stuff. But anyway, there's a shout out to her and Rich, or her husband, Rich. And then the Fishers up in Sonora, Bob, Ann, Sandy, and Brad and Martha. Martha, take care of yourself. Wear your PPEs. She's a nurse, by the way, a CNA, certified nursing assistant, and it's bad up there too, as it is everywhere else. Okay, in the same vein, up in Sonora, California, Darrell Larson, the tax guy and Bronco rider, Leonidas Maciel up in Tuolumne County, and Judy May, again, up in Tuolumne County. If either of you are listening in to this, hello. Tim Conrad, who was living up in Sonora, California, was in our high school class. He is now down in Petaluma and a photographer extraordinaire. And Herr Doctor David Rubin back in the Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina area. He's retired now. He retired officially from GlaxoSmithKline, and he was when I roomed with him in 1977, 78, and part of 79. He was a pulmonary doctor up at UCSF in San Francisco. And most of what he did was research on endothelial cells and the substances that they kicked out into the bloodstream. Enzymes, that's the word I'm looking for. But anyway, he got tired of scrabbling around for grants and money. Anyway, so he went to work for a drug company. He's retired now. But in his retirement, he has become quite an accomplished artist. Okay, check out his paintings at davidrubinpaintings.com. That's all one word. DavidRubinpaintings.com. And see what you think of those things. I love them. He has really come a long way. Okay. Who else? Nelson Lydell and Alice back in Sarasota, Florida. Nelson was retired from the United States Public Health Service. Geraldine Goldfinger out on Long Island. She's probably listening in, as is my cousin Michael and Debbie. They live in Queens. Astoria, I think. I'm not sure whether that's a separate town or what, but it's in Queens. And Tim Munnicky and his wife Julie, they're over in Fairfield. Dave and Rosie Takach, that's a Hungarian name, Takach. The actual Hungarian spelling of it is TACAC with a little diacritical mark over the C, and which makes it pronounced Takach. Although they changed the spelling of it when the Takach family was immigrated over here from Hungary. My late wife, Patty, her maiden name was Takach. Okay. Well, actually, her name was Dennis. That was her dad's name. Her mom's was in the Takach family. Okay. And then my favorite herpetologist, Karina Hilliard, I explained what she's all about on previous shows, the snake handler and animal control officer down there in Patagonia, Arizona. Okay, let's get going on this stuff. You're probably tired of listening to me blather on about my shout-outs. Okay, as you all know, I am a long-time subscriber to the Skeptical Inquirer. And this latest issue, okay, where is it? January, February of 2021. Okay, I'm going to hold this up. Here's the cover. It's what you see is kind of half of the face of the amazing Randy. And here's a picture of him more recently. Shoot, this isn't helping. Okay, there we go. Kind of like a Dumbledore type character. And you see his little walking stick with the skull on it. And he was 98 when he passed away. And he always attended these Psychon conferences, the skeptic conferences that they have. They had them lately down in Las Vegas. They didn't have one this year, but they're always around October. But I attended the 2017 and the 2018 Psychon conferences. And he was there, and he was in a wheelchair. I don't think he was bound to the wheelchair. He could walk a few steps, but really he was getting up there in years. And but he was kind of the godfather of the modern skeptical movement. Back in 1976, there was a meeting to organize this new group, which eventually morphed into CFI, Center for Inquiry, and it's located just off the campus of SUNY Buffalo, SUNY, State University of New York at Buffalo. Okay. The date of his passing was October 20th of 2020. And it says of age-related causes. Well, okay, he was 98, so there's probably a lot of things wrong with him. Coffee break. Okay, rounding. Okay, Randy was a founding member of CSICOP. That was what this organization was called before its current CFI designation. Okay, Committee for the Skeptical Inquiry of Claims of the Paranormal, PsyCop. That's what it was originally. Now it's called Committee for Skeptical Inquiry. Now that is a separate organization, but under the umbrella of Center for Inquiry. They have a lot of organizations. The James Randi Educational Foundation, God, what's the, damn brain freezes. There's one that's entirely concerned with health issues, alternative and complementary medical issues. Man, okay, it'll come to me. He could be considered the founder of the modern skeptical movement. He was certainly his most visible figure in fighting for science and reason and against frauds and charlatans and pretenders. Originally a stage-performing magician and escape artist of the tradition of Harry Houdini, an earlier great magician who also exposed psychic frauds, Randy became a scourge to paranormalists, charlatans, and gullible pretenders everywhere. Okay, here's a statement from CFI. Randy helped found the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal, PsyCop, the organization that would one day become the Center for Inquiry. And the year that all of this was founded was 1976. Alongside legends such as Carl Sagan, Isaac Asimov, B.F. Skinner, the behavioral psychologist, and Paul Kurtz. I had, until I started subscribing to this magazine, I had never heard of who Paul Kurtz was. Together, this group of luminaries from the fields of science, literature, philosophy, and entertainment dedicated themselves to a project that has only grown in its necessity. Oh boy. Talk about needing something like these people nowadays. From 2016 until now, all sorts of BS has been loosed upon this country by the forces of Trumpism. Another coffee break, excuse me. The promotion of scientific inquiry, critical investigations, and the use of reason in examining controversial and extraordinary claims. In other words, these were the founding fathers of the reality-based community. Okay, let's see. There was a couple of books that Randy wrote. The one that I would really recommend that everybody go out and read, very simply entitled Flim Flam, F-L-I-M, F-L-A-M, in which he exposes the tricks and deceptions of the so-called paranormal community. And he put all of his accumulated knowledge, and he was an extremely intelligent, almost, I would call him a genius. In fact, he won the Genius Award one year. I forget what they call that. That will also come to me eventually, hopefully before the show's over. The James MacArthur Genius Award. He got it. I think it was back in the early 80s. Okay, the Encyclopedia of Claims, Frauds, and Hoaxes of the Occult and Supernatural. James Randi did that. And if you're going to read one thing that Randy did, then I would recommend that it be Flim Flam. But then this would be the second book that I would recommend. In his frequent lectures and other personal appearances all over the world, he used his sharp wit and showmanship to gain levels of public and media attention that few, if any, other critics of the paranormal and defenders of science and reason have ever achieved. Hear, hear. Okay. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to eliminate a lot of this stuff that I underlined when I got this issue. I want to hold up this one picture of him as I think he was in his late 30s or early 40s when this picture was taken. Okay. For those listening and not able to see it on YouTube, that was a picture of him with manacles and handcuffs and all sorts of restraints on his wrists, and him looking like Mephistopheles looking out at the camera. He was an escape artist, and no prison could hold him. Real quick, while I'm still on the Randy thing, Penn and Teller wrote a tribute to him in this issue of the Skeptical Inquirer. Randy proved so much. Randy proved that you could be a magician and be honest. Okay, that just brings to mind a documentary on Randy's life. Who? An honest thief? An honest liar? Okay, I will run across that title before the show's over. It's on Netflix, I believe. Randy proved that you could be a magician and be honest. He proved that a conjurer could respect knowledge and people enough to get consent before thrilling them with gloriously fake miracles, as opposed to Christian miracles, which are also fake. The latter part of Randy's life was spent helping the world see through those who prey on grief and false hope, but he never lost his magic chops. He could fool anyone, anytime, anywhere. Randy was a great magician. And coming from Penn and Teller, that says a lot. Randy proved that we all have to work together toward understanding our universe. We need experimental scientists to invent and follow protocols. We need theoretical thinkers who can create ideas to try to explain what we observe. And we also need streetwise scholars, heavy on the streetwise. The easiest ones to fool are PhDs who think that they cannot be fooled. I'm not sure of the exact quote from in here, but Randy has said over and over again that those are the easiest to fool. Randy proved being a skeptic is fun, and it is. It is. The skeptical community into which Randy came was full of serious scholars, excellent scientists, but not really showmen. Randy convinced the world that the skeptical approach is a blast. He wrote and performed with joyful, stinging, defiant wit. He gave skepticism all the fun and romance of a daredevil magic show. He showed how advocating science can be wicked fun, rebellious fun, full of high adventure, spy movie daring do, and laughs. Heavy on the laughs. Randy proved you could be skeptical without ever being cynical. That's one of my faults. I tend to be a bit more cynical than I really should be. Randy was a kind man, and okay, there's something that I circled about this. Okay, about how you should. Okay, no. And this isn't. This is the previous article, not the Penn and Teller thing, but it applies just as I thought about it just now. How do you respond to a friend who ardently believes in ideas and claims that scientists and skeptics know is nonsense? Hello, QAnon. Hello, Trumpers. Hello, MAGA heads. I'm being cynical again. But I'm not really sorry about it. Okay. Randy paused thoughtfully for a long time. He then softly whispered, "Be kind, be kind." He explained that they need to believe. Be compassionate, he said. People who follow Trump, believe in Trump, they somehow need to believe, and it's a need that is psychologically damaging. So it doesn't do any good to reason with a full-blown MAGA head. Another coffee break, sorry. Okay. Penn and Teller. More Penn and Teller. Okay. Randy proved to us that we really can make the world a better place. He did it. Let's see. Randy was the world's most famous skeptic, but he was never skeptical of love. Randy knew it existed, and Randy's whole being proved it. Love was in Randy's eyes and his smile. Randy had enough love for everyone. Hear, hear. Let's see. It's been about 30 minutes. There are so many damn tributes in here, and I'm trying to. Okay, let me hold up this one more thing. It's a cover of a Skeptical Inquirer magazine from a long time ago, when it was in a smaller format. September of '83, this one is. Okay. Okay, that is a picture of the amazing Randy and Project Alpha, Magicians in the Psi Lab, spelled PSI. There was, I think it was the Air Force that funded a study of psychic powers. And Randy snuck two of his acolytes into this study. And there were real scientists, PhDs that were conducting this study to see how psychic powers could be used. And this is during the middle of the Cold War. This was before the collapsing of the Soviet Union, and so our military, bless their hearts, was examining all sorts of scientific ways of spying on the Soviets, foiling the Soviets, and blah, blah, blah. So this one, Project Alpha, was investigating ways of remote viewing, which is one of the bullshit ways. Oh, sorry, Rob Tomaszewski. That was one of the words that I'm not supposed to use on the radio. Forgive me. I know you will. You're a good guy, Rob Tomaszewski. He's the station manager, and occasionally he listens to this. Okay. Anyway, Randy snuck two of his acolytes in there as two young guys claiming to have these kind of psychic powers, and they were studied by this group of PhD scientists, and they were wowed by the apparent psychic powers of these two guys. From this picture, it looks like they're, late teens, early 20s. They can't be over 30. One of these guys later went on to be his stage name, Banachek, Banacek, who I met at the 2018 PsyCon conference in Las Vegas. In fact, he chose me out of the audience to help him in one of his stabbing magic tricks. And I don't know, he's 50 now, maybe early 50s. It's kind of hard to tell. But anyway, incidentally, the PsyCon conferences, I did get a chance to meet Randy. And it was at the 2017 one that I met Karina Hilliard. And she was there with her dad. I'm not sure whether she was the skeptic that brought her dad or her dad was the skeptic that brought her. Anyway, she's down in Patagonia, Arizona. And truth be known, I developed a little crush on her. But anyway, we sat together, and anyway, that's a whole nother thing. Uh, anyway, after Project Alpha was completed and they came to the conclusion that, hey, we might be able to use these psychic powers militarily, Randy admitted, and the two acolytes came forward and says, we've been fooling you. I don't know exactly what they said, but essentially that was it, and blew the whistle on this whole thing. And so it wasn't long after that the military decided, this isn't really worth pursuing any longer. So hopefully it saved the taxpayers quite a bit of money. Yours and my money. Okay, I'm going to end this tribute to the amazing Randy by reading two of his quotes. He was writing a book about faith healers, and he says, "This book is being written by an angry man. It is a cry of outrage against a wrong that needs to be righted. People are being robbed of their money, their health, and their emotional stability." Okay. And the book's title, which came out in 1987, was called The Faith Healers. Christians, are you paying attention? There's no faith healing. God is not going to come down through the ministrations of some fraud pastor and make you walk again. Okay, next quote. And this is from the Encyclopedia of Claims, Frauds, and Hoaxes of the Occult and Supernatural, which came out in 1995. Okay. Though it is not widely accepted or even well known to the public, it is a fact that no occult, paranormal, psychic, or supernatural claim has ever been substantiated by proper testing in a controlled environment. Hear, hear. Okay, Susan Gerbic. I'm not going to read any of her tribute, but she was invited to write a tribute to this. I've met Susan Gerbic, and she's the guiding light behind the guerrilla Wikipedia, and she and her acolytes correct Wikipedia entries, who are entries that are essentially flim-flam. Anybody can correct a Wikipedia entry, and they have their sea of editors too. But she corrects them, and the vast majority of her corrections, or her acolytes' corrections, have stood the test of Wikipedia's editors. Okay, for the watchers of YouTube, here's one last picture, and then I'll move on to feminism. Here's a picture of the amazing Randy. He was not a big man. He was fairly short, and wiry is, I guess. Okay, here is a picture of Randy holding a pair of manacles that he had just escaped from. Okay. Enough of that. Okay. On to feminism. In my spare time, I'm writing a story, which, I don't know, may balloon into a novel or not, of this young girl who, in understanding herself, by young girl I mean high school age, and the story has her graduating from high school and then beginning at Stanford, which is kind of where I am now. But she herself has declared to her mother that she is a feminist now, and this whole thing in this book that I'm writing takes place in the late 70s. So, which is the middle of the second wave of feminism. Okay. First wave feminism is essentially concerned itself with voting rights for women, which they achieved with the 19th Amendment. Okay, you've all studied in your history books, hopefully, the suffragists. And in addition to voting rights, they were agitating for property rights. It used to be, back in the 1800s and early 1900s, that property that the family owned was owned by the husband. And upon divorce or upon the death of the husband, the wife was not allowed to own property. Okay. And which is horrendous. Okay. The luminaries of that time were, Lucretia Mott, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony, Alice Paul, the most militant of them all, Dr. Mary E. Edwards Walker, who was one of the first doctors in this country. And she joined the Union Army as a doctor. Well, they wouldn't call her that, and they wouldn't give her a commission, even though she was as qualified as any other doctor back in those days. But she was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for her service in the Union Army as a doctor. Okay, there was if you've read your history books, there was a Seneca Falls Conference in 1848 where all of these luminaries met to draft a statement of intentions or goals that the women's suffragist movement was trying to achieve, which they did in 1920, I'm sorry. There was a big controversy back at the Seneca Falls Conference about whether to include black women in this movement. There were some that were for it. There were some that were against it, not because they were racists, and in fact, probably some of them were, but whether efforts to ensure the votes of blacks would detract from their efforts to ensure the votes of women. Okay, that was a big controversy back then. There were two organizations, the NWSA, the National Women's Suffrage Association. Okay, that was Susan B. Anthony's organization and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. And they opposed the 15th Amendment, which was the amendment that granted blacks the right to vote. Okay, there was a parallel organization, the AWSA, American Women's Suffrage Association. They're similar acronym, but Lucy Stone and Julia Ward Howe, Howe, they were pro-15th Amendment, and they had black and white membership. And both of these were right around 1848, 1849, 1850, when these two organizations were founded. The thing that divided these two organizations was support or lack thereof of the 15th Amendment, which was black voting rights. Okay, 1896, NACWC, I can't read my own notes, National Association of Colored Women's Clubs. Okay, Harriet Tubman and Ida B. Wells were the guiding lights behind this one. Okay, all of those were first wave feminists. And when women finally did get the vote and get property rights allowed to them, that was kind of the end of it. Well, cut ahead to the late 1960s and all the way through the early 1980s. Okay, that was what's been termed by historians and feminists and everything as the second wave feminism. And the book that kind of launched this whole second wave of feminism was The Feminine Mystique, written by Betty Friedan. And, oh gosh, maybe I should write my notes in a more legible form. 1963 is when this The Feminine Mystique came out. And in it, women are victims of false beliefs requiring them to find their personal identity through their husbands and their children. That's what Betty Friedan was inveighing against. And I agree. Of course, I agree. Non-discrimination in business and politics and the arts, and reproductive rights were very important. There was a time that birth control pills were considered sinful. In fact, there's the conservative Christian fundamentalist evangelicals, they still consider it to be sinful, and they are in favor of laws outlawing birth control pills. Okay. This second wave of feminism engendered a split in that feminist movement about pornography. Okay. One faction of the feminist movement declared pornography to be exploitative of women, degrading of women, and I can't disagree with that. There was, this faction of the feminist movement wanted to do away with pornography, outlaw it, and which I'm not for. However much I agree with the fact that pornography, 98% of it is degrading to women and exploitative of women. The other faction of the feminist movement were sex-positive women, and they did not want pornography to be outlawed. They wanted to be allowed to have their own pornography or feel the freedom to act in pornography if they chose to. Okay, another coffee break here. Boy, I am really, I'm really in need of coffee today. Cheers. Okay. And, that split in the feminist movement is still going on today, although those feminists that just want pornography to be outlawed or done away with, they're sort of dwindling in numbers because they realize that that's just not going to happen. Okay, third wave. Okay, began in the mid-90s, and essentially they were the daughters of the second wave feminists, and they championed an awareness of sexism, racism, classism, and they were fighting the patriarchy a lot of times with irony. Eve Ensler, the author of The Vagina Monologues, which is usually a one actress getting up on a stage and reading the vagina monologues. I've never seen a production of this, so I would like to, because it goes into the wrong ways that women's bodies are perceived or treated or enjoyed by men or other women. Okay, another group were Riot Girls, RIOT, and then GRRRLS. And they were a punk movement that their songs and performances were pro-women, kind of anti-men, not misandry per se, but kind of making fun of the guys that were not properly respective of women. Okay, and there was a Guerrilla Girls movement in the art world, and this was, if you've heard the term performance art or installation art, this is where the Guerrilla Girls comes in. And I'm sorry that I don't have the names off the top of my head of some of these performance artists, female performance artists. But they would do things like in an art gallery, they would lay on a canvas sheet and allow spectators, both men and women, to quote unquote decorate her body. Now, this is the artist herself, and she was making a statement against the objectifying of women's bodies. The third wave feminism was much more inclusive of women of color, and it's in reaction to and opposition to the stereotypical images of women as passive, weak, virginal, and faithful. Or the other extreme is domineering, demanding, slutty, and emasculating. I wrote a little note here. Let me look at it right quick. Lois Pineau, Pineau, from the late 80s. And damn, all I wrote down here in my notes was communicate. I don't know what that means. I apologize to my YouTube people out there and to my listeners. I don't know why I wrote that one word as I was looking all this stuff up. Third wave feminists are assertive, powerful, and in control of their own sexuality and their bodies, their aspirations, their striving for making their own way in this world. That's what third wave feminists are. And what is sexual liberation? Okay, which is a concern of third wave feminists. Okay, is porn a form of violence against women? Question mark. Or a medium of feminist expression? Okay, there is now pornography, and the line between pornography and art is kind of a gray area. Some that has been some feminist films that have been termed pornography are made by women for the enjoyment of women. There is such a thing on there. Not all pornography is just strictly masculine, although, I'm just pulling a number out of my bunghole, but I would say about 95% of it is made for men, by men, and really do exploit women. Okay. Okay, my notes here. Porn has been one of the most divisive lessons. What? Oh, geez. Issues. Damn. My notes again. One of the most divisive issues in feminism. Okay, which brings us to the fourth wave of feminism. Damn. Ooh. Okay, real quick. It incorporates queer, sexuality, and gender-based issues. It is sex positive, empowering women in their sexuality. It is trans positive, making trans people more visible. This whole thing is tricky to define, and not all feminists even think there is a fourth wave. Okay, and it is body positive, embracing diversity in the female form. And it is digitally driven, using the internet to encourage discourse and activism. Okay, that is it. There's the play-out music. Here it comes. You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats. Okay, by the timer on the computer here, I've got about 10 seconds left before KPCA LP cuts me off at the 58-minute mark. So even though the radio people won't hear this part of it, it's the YouTube people will. And so I'm going to be signing off here. And the next Midnight Skeptic show will be broadcast on the 17th, locally on radio. I'll probably record it on either Thursday or Friday, the 14th or 15th. In any event, it will be before the inauguration of Joe Biden. Oh, thank goodness the orange sociopath will go the way of all bad dreams. Okay. I'm hitting the stop recording button.